Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Game Things. I'm your host for the week, Ming, and today we're gonna start off our episode by covering the title, Kena Bridge of Spirits. Kena Bridge of Spirits, which was originally only available on PlayStation and Epic Games Store, will now be making its way to PC on Steam as well. And alongside its release on Steam, the game will also be celebrating its 1-year anniversary by having an update to the game. This new update will include new cosmetic options, new enemies, new challenges, as well as new abilities and charm stones to improve the gameplay variety. Other than the updates mentioned earlier, Kena Bridge of Spirits will also be getting a brand new Game Mode Plus, which is great for players that want to clear off certain achievements or just want to re-experience the game at full power. The game is currently set to be available on Steam on the 27th of September, so if you are interested in this title, make sure to check it out. Next, we're going to talk about a game that has a lot of hype surrounding it, Black Myth Wukong. So Black Myth Wukong is an upcoming action RPG game that centers around Chinese mythology, specifically Wukong the Monkey King. So far, the developers have revealed some pretty interesting and impressive footage to the public, with the most recent trailer being a gameplay trailer, so we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. So far, the game showcased a couple of abilities that Wukong has. These abilities include his expandable staff, cloning, as well as shapeshifting. In terms of his staff, we currently know that he can use it to unleash a charge attack or use it to evade attacks by standing on top of his extended staff. Cloning, on the other hand, was a bit lackluster, as the devs didn't really showcase what exactly you could do with this ability aside from tanking aggro. But the shape-shifting ability, however, was pretty interesting and hilarious. Currently, they have only revealed 2 shape-shifting forms so far, and the first form is a beetle form. This beetle form allows Wukong to travel in the air, and the other form that was revealed is a huge-ass rock with legs. Yes, you heard that correctly, one of his shape-shifting forms is a rock. While the rock form is pretty weird, but the damage and tankiness of that form is rather impressive. That's basically most of the highlights of the gameplay footage. In terms of graphics and music, the game is absolutely stunning, and the attention to detail for this game is just wow. Honestly, if the game is released with the same graphics as shown in the trailer, then this game will basically be Game of the Year, no questions asked. The only sad thing about the game is that we have no release date yet, and all we know is that it will be out next year, so hopefully it will be released early next year with no delays, because I personally am really excited to try this game out because it looks so insanely good, and I highly suggest you guys take a look at the recent trailers, because trust me, you guys will be blown away by the sheer quality of this game. The last piece of major news we have for this week is on Destiny 2, specifically on the recent Lightfall expansion stream. During this stream, a lot of new and interesting news was revealed, and I'm sure that you guys can be excited for it as well. First, the devs have revealed news on an upcoming new planet. The new planet in question is Neptune, and its capital Numona. Players will be able to explore this new area when the Lightfall expansion is released. The next piece of news revealed for the Lightfall expansion is on a brand new subclass called Strand, that supposedly focuses more on mobility, and that's basically all we know about this subclass currently, but don't worry, we will revisit this topic when we get more info in the future. The next thing that was showcased is a couple of quality of life updates, including things like loadout system and mod manager, Guardian ranks, in-game fireteam finder, as well as Guardian commendation. All of these features will serve to make the player's life easier, as well as hopefully improve the social interaction between players. The next piece of news is another quality of life update, but in terms of its impact, it's definitely more impactful than the previous news, because this new quality of life update is related to all the expansions. Basically, all expansions will no longer be sunsetted, and they will be permanently available at all times, so you don't have to worry about any last minute grinding or anything like that, and you can now fully enjoy all the content at your own pace. Other than that, Destiny 2 will also be available now on Epic Games Store and will have a featured collab with Fortnite and Fall Guys, so you guys will soon be able to get some cosmetics for both of these games. That's basically it for the Lightfall expansion stream, but in the meantime, while waiting for the new expansion, releasing next year, you guys can enjoy the new season called Season of Plunder that just went live. This season has a couple of cool stuff, including new weapons, new cosmetics, and new stories for players to experience. There's also a new season pass for players to further earn more rewards. Aside from that, the season will also feature 2 new game activities revolving around pirates. The first activity is a ship-boarding pirate battle, while the other activity centers around a treasure chest, so be sure to try these activities while they are still available. The new season will also feature a returning raid, King's Fall, and last but not least, Arc 3.0 will also be available to all players for free, so make sure to enjoy all these things brought about by the new season. That's all for our major news segment, and we will now move on to our flash news segment, starting off with the recent Pokémon Scarlet and Violet reveals during the Pokémon World Championship. The most recent reveals didn't really reveal too many new things, but for any hardcore competitive Pokémon battlers out there, you guys might want to pay attention on this particular bit. First off, we had the reveal of a brand new Pokémon called Cyclizar, which is a lizard that looks basically like a bike. If you ask me, Cyclizar will most likely be the pre-evolved form of Koraidon and Miraidon because they look way too similar in terms of design. Then the next reveal is on a couple of new items. The first item is called Mirror Herb. This herb allows your Pokemon to gain the same stat boost as your opponent. For instance, if your opponent used Swords Dance and got a +2 boost to attack, your Pokemon will consume the herb and similarly get a +2 boost to its attack as well. This item can be pretty broken because it really forces your opponent to think twice before committing to a stat buff move. The next item we have is Cover Cloak. Cover Cloak prevents the users from being affected by additional effects of moves, so for instance, if your opponent used Fake Out, your Pokemon will not be flinched thanks to Cover Cloak. The last and final item we have is Loaded Dice. Loaded Dice is a pretty interesting one because its effects are pretty RNG reliant. Loaded Dice basically allows your Pokemon's multi-hit moves to hit more times. So for example, Bullet Seed, Free Attack, etc. These moves under the boost of Loaded Dice will have a chance to hit more times. The reason why this item is pretty RNG reliant is because it merely increases the chance of your moves to hit more times instead of guaranteeing the hit. So there's still a chance that you end up getting wrecked by RNG. That's pretty much all the Pokemon news so far. As we get closer to the release date, we will most likely get more reveals and news. So be sure to subscribe to Game Things to stay updated on all the latest gaming news. The next title we have for our flash news segment is Redfall. So to give you guys some context, Redfall is a 4-player co-op shooter game like Left 4 Dead 2, but instead of going against zombies, you'll be going up against vampires and other humans, otherwise known as cultists. You might be wondering why you would have to face off against other humans in this game, and the reason for that is because the cultists are people that willingly serve the vampires because they wish to be turned into a vampire as well. To be fair, where the cultists are coming from, I mean, you get eternal life and look badass, so it's kind of a decent reason to serve the vampires, I guess. But in any case, like most other co-op shooter games out there, there will also be certain enemies that have various interesting abilities, including your typical boomer from Left 4 Dead 2. But that's more or less all we know about the enemies so far. As for the playable characters, currently there are only 4 of them, and each character will have various different abilities. First, we have the stealth-based character Jacob. Jacob is a character that is basically equipped with things perfect for stealth and recon. His main weapon is a sniper, he has a pet raven that can be used for recon, and he has a stealth cloak to sneak up on enemies or escape to a safe location for sniping. Then we have Layla. Layla's kit is a bit more unique because her abilities revolves around telekinesis. The most interesting usage of her telekinesis ability so far is where she creates a platform out of thin air to help your allies jump boost up to higher ground, which honestly is a pretty cool ability. Then we have the next character, Remy. Remy is the combat engineer of the group, and she specializes in using turrets to take down her foes. Then lastly we have Devinder. Devinder is the wacky one of the group, and his kit revolves around using self-invented tech to produce random effects like putting your enemies on stasis, to a homemade gun that shoots wooden stakes. All in all, the characters in general have a wide array of abilities, so there will definitely be a character that suits your playstyle the best. But if you are still worried about not having enough skill options, then worry not, because each character will also have their own unique skill tree for you to further diversify and customize your abilities. The last and final thing that I want to highlight about this game is how the enemies work. Unlike most other co-op shooter out there, the enemies here aren't the typical type that rush at you mindlessly because they aren't zombies after all. Instead, they are more similar to enemies in Ready or Not, where they have intelligence and are capable of planning against you. So it will be a much more different experience compared to most other common zombie type co-op shooters. In any case, Redfall will be releasing sometime next year, and it will be a great time to enjoy with friends, but if you're looking to enjoy the game alone, that is possible as well, so for all you solo grinders out there, make sure to take note of this. The last flash news we have for this week is on the soon to be released Slime Rancher 2. Slime Rancher 2, which will be releasing soon on 22nd of September, is a sequel to the fun and relaxing Slime Rancher. So if you have never played the game before, Slime Rancher is a title where you capture and nurture slimes in a ranch built specifically for slimes. The game features a large variety of slimes ranging from rock-based slimes, magma slimes, gold slimes, firefly slimes, and many others. You can even mix certain slimes together to create a new type of slime. But you have to be cautious when mixing slimes, because if you mix too many together, you end up creating a monster slime that can and will attack you on sight. Aside from capturing and managing your slimes, Slime Rancher is also somewhat of a puzzle game where you have to unlock various puzzles to slowly expand your exploration region. Overall, Slime Rancher is an excellent title for players that just want to chill and have a good time, and I'm sure that Slime Rancher 2 will be just as great because you still have most of the same features from the initial game, but now with more places to explore and more slimes for you to encounter. If you have never tried Slime Rancher before, I highly suggest giving it a shot because it is really an enjoyable title. That's all for our Flash News segment. Now let's talk about some game delays that were recently announced. First, we have Evil West, which has its release date now pushed back to November 22nd this year. Honestly, I would say that being pushed back to November 22nd is still acceptable because the initial release date was originally September 20th, so it's basically an extra 2 months of waiting, which isn't too bad compared to some other titles that have been repeatedly pushed back like Forspoken or Lord of the Rings Gollum. The second title being delayed is High on Life. High on Life is a wacky shooter game brought to you by the creators of Rick and Morty. The new release date of the game is 13th of December this year, and to compensate for the delay, the devs have instead released a short animated video as a so-called apology, and the video itself is pretty weird, which is to be expected from the creators of Rick and Morty. I actually highly suggest watching the video and watching this title's trailer just for its sheer weirdness. I mean, that's only because if you have never seen the trailer for High on Life, you are honestly missing out on quite a bit of weird shit. The third title being delayed is Plant of Lana, being delayed to spring of 2023. And this is what I mean by a long delay. The game was originally set to be released this year, and it has now been pushed back to spring of next year. So for fans of this title, you guys are gonna have to hang in there and continue waiting, while at the same time pray real hard that the game doesn't be further delayed. The last and final delay we have this week is on Wanted Dead, which has been delayed to 14th of February 2023, which just so happened to be Valentine's Day. So I guess if you guys have nothing planned for that day, then maybe check this game out when it's released. That's all for our delay segment. Now let's move on to our featured releases segment. The first title we have for you guys is the Midnight Fight Express. Midnight Fight Express is a classic beat 'em up game where you are an ex-thug that now has a mission to beat up your previous gang. In terms of gameplay, the game is honestly very fast paced like most other olden day games. For enemy types, there are a good variety of them, but there aren't any particular types that stand out. You have your basic tanky bulk guy, You have your little slasher guys and the guys that grab you. So yeah, pretty standard for beat 'em up games. The thing that stands out, however, is the art style. The art style is rather simplistic, but works very well thanks to the combat pace of the game. All in all, the game is pretty good, but if you're looking for a game like Sifu, then unfortunately this game might not be it, because in terms of difficulty and complexity, it really can't be compared to Sifu at all. But nonetheless, it is still an enjoyable title if you like the genre. The next title we have is the new Saints Row title, available now on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One and PC. The new Saints Row game is rather interesting, I would say. This is because the new Saints Row is basically GTA with some slight difference. In terms of combat, most of the fun and cool weapons in the previous Saints Row titles have now been removed, leaving only the most basic guns. Aside from that, combat missions basically are just extremely repetitive, where you mostly just engage in a shootout with multiple waves of enemies, with the only difference being the venue. So yeah, very similar to GTA. When it comes to earning money, you can either steal some small cash, or like GTA, you can also run some side business to help you earn money. There are also heist missions in Saints Row like GTA, but the difference is that you can't actually participate in the heist. Instead, you have to sit and wait in the car and let your lackeys do all the work, which is just pretty darn weird, honestly. All in all, the game just feels really unfinished. Saints Row used to be a GTA-like game, but with so much more chaos, and that really set it apart from GTA. But now that the devs have removed all the cool things about Saints Row, it's basically just a worse version of GTA and not really worth the time and money. Hopefully the devs can accept all the existing feedback and improve the game later on, otherwise it's really just not worth getting the game at all unless you are a hardcore fan of Saints Row. Even then, I would still kinda advise against it. The third featured title we have today is SD Gundam Battle Alliance. So like its title suggests, this is basically a co-op game that features Gundams. If you don't know what Gundams are, they are basically a franchise from Japan that revolves around mechs, and some of the designs are pretty cool. Anyways, SD Gundam Battle Alliance is basically a Gundam game that ties in around 18 different Gundam seasons together. As for how exactly the 18 seasons are tied in together, it's actually done in a pretty smart way. The entire premise of this title's story is that you, the main character, somehow got dragged into an alternate SD world where your Gundams have been shrunk to a smaller and cuter size. On top of that, within this SD world, various other characters from other seasons get randomly dragged in as well, which is honestly a pretty freaking cool way to somehow merge 18 seasons worth of characters. In terms of combat, it's not too complicated and each Gundam will have their own kits and abilities, but of course you also have the option to create various builds to help you further customize the characters to something that best fits your playstyle. All in all, the game looks pretty interesting and is worth looking at if you are a fan of the Gundam series. Even if you have never heard of Gundam before, I would still suggest giving the game a chance because it quite frankly looks pretty fun. The last and final title we have today is Soul Hackers 2. Soul Hackers 2 is another game under the Shin Megami Tensei series. So like most other SMT or Persona games out there, the game is a turn-based JRPG game with various demons for you to control. While the gameplay is pretty similar to the SMT games, the plot however is a bit more different. The main story plot is still the usual end of the world type of storyline, nothing too special, but the side stories that flesh out your companions' background stories however are really well done, unlike most of the other previous titles. All in all, if you are invested in the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, then this game will be right up your alley, but if you aren't into the franchise, then you can probably skip this title for now and perhaps wait for Persona 5 Royal's release. That's all for our featured releases this week. Next, we move on to our most anticipated segment, Free Things. This week, Epic Games Store is giving out Ring of Pain as well as a anniversary pack for Destiny 2, so make sure to claim those gifts while they are still available. And that marks the end of our episode for this week. I was your host for the week, Ming, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you want to know more about the recent Gamescom showcase, then you might want to check out our most recent video talking about it. With that in mind, I hope you guys have a great day, and we will see you next week in another episode of Game Things.